Hey YouTube, it is league turnover day and it's kind of a rough week. So your options are either Psychic Cup, which I made a top teams video this morning, but that cup is 1500 CP, but very, very, very limited meta. 10 Pokemon really are the only viable Pokemon in this league, that league. So if you want to play that, check out top teams, but it's very, very small meta. Or you can play Open Master League, which I'll talk about here. And unfortunately, Open Master League is XL and heavily relied on legendary Pokemon. So we're going to go over the top rankings here. We're going to go over some teams. Two at the beginning with everything's XL'd, non-legendary teams, and then three I put together with legendary teams. So let's just quickly go over Zygarde. I'm just going to ignore it. Yes, it's ranked number one, but the fact that the chance that anyone has the complete form with the amount of XLs required is like probably like 1 in a million, right? So I would not worry about that too much. Groudon's one you need to worry about. Groudon was always like one of the top Pokemon, and then they gave it Precipice Blades, which is like a way, way, way better version of Earthquake. So now it has a fast charging Mudshot with a way better Earthquake and a Fire Punch sort of bait. So great all around. Your biggest issues, as you're going to see, are just the flyers, right? Because you don't have anything to throw at the flyers. So Lugia, Dragonite, Yveltal, right? So any sort of flyer is how you need to pair to deal with that. Giratina Ultra is an interesting one. I've seen a few of them. If you played Ultra League, it's the exact same thing. A very, 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 very tanky, very spammy Pokemon. Just neutral all around, right? You have your hard punishes, but basically you're hitting at least sort of neutral in all situations. You see the moveset as Shadow Claw, Dragon Claw, and Ancient Power. Dragon Claw should be obvious because there's so many dragons. Ancient Power is because if you run into an Yveltal, it's not just an Yveltal. Well, Yveltal because it resists the Shadow Claws, so Shadow Sneak doesn't add anything, but also because there's a lot of flyers in this, right? I just mentioned all the flyers for Groudon, so covering all Ancient Power for all those flyers is why that is recommended there. Dragonite at 4 and 5, yes, Dragonite is one of the best Pokemon in this meta. It just does so well. Again, cover your Fairy weakness. That's an obvious. But outside the Fairy weakness, even your Steel is your next hardest. You have the superpower for the Steel, and then Dragon Breath, Dragon Claw is great. So if you don't have any legendaries, Dragonite should be the first one that you build. And if you don't know which non-legendaries to build, I've already done a video on that. I will link it above right now, so you can just go check out that video to see which non-legendaries you should build. Xerneas, I'm just going to cover Xerneas and Zacian at the same time because they're sort of similar in the fact that they have these decently fast charging fast moves, Geomancy the new one, and Snarl, and then like nukes, right? So close combat and wild charge for Zacian as nukes, close combat, and this one is running actually Moonblast, which again, if you're a fairy, not bad to have one fairy type move. But basically the problem with these fairies now is before you can wall them, right? You get in there with a Melmetal, or you get in there with a Excadrill or a Metagross, and you are okay. Now they got close combat, and those close combats get you very, very quickly, and they can one-shot some of these Pokemon, and then if not, two for the other ones. So that is why it has jumped up significantly. Plus, there's so many dragons, right? So great fairy. Mewtwo is still Mewtwo. It's at 7 and 13. Just again, your hardest answer is going to be like Ghost and Dark. Dark, you're completely walled if you run the Side Strike Shadow Ball. But outside of that, like Side Strike just it does like so much damage in just neutral situations. Kyurem, because I'm gonna go over Kyurem at number 8 and Baxcalibur at 20 because Baxcalibur is the new Pokemon, but it's got basically the same moveset. It's just replace Avalanche with Glaciate. So if you have a Kyurem, there's no real reason that you need that unless you want to run like both of them. But again, a dragon that is also ice, so being able to hit ice, hit a dragon super effective for the dragons, and then also hit flyers with ice and stuff like that is a very nice combo there. Meloetta, again, one of those fast charging Pokemon, a little worse I'd say than Xerneas, only because you have Psyshock and Dazzling Gleam. So again, if you get caught on a Steel, you really don't have anything to throw there, right? So that's why Xerneas, or in my opinion Zacian, even though it's ranked lower, is a better option there. Rayquaza with Breaking Swipe, super glassy, and Dragon Ascent. Dragon Ascent, I guess, has coverage, but realistically, it's just Dragon Tail, Breaking Swipe, using your attack heavy-ness just to Dragon Tail and Breaking Swipe down. Obviously, fairies are your issue. Zekrom, same sort of thing. You have that Wild Charge Nuke, right, which gets you out of some fairy situations, but Dragon Breath Crunch, great against just sort of neutral dragon opponents. great overall, like Ghost and Psychic covering with the Crunch, and then Wild Charizard and Nuke. I went over those two. Reshiram, a Fire Dragon, right? So having Draco Meteor as a Nuke plus Fusion Flare, I'm pretty for. Does Fusion Flare, I think, lowers the opponent's attack, I want to say. Don't quote me on that. But that's why it's sort of like another nice Pokemon. One on this list, which doesn't sim as well, but every single person still uses it, is Dialga. So I'm gonna put it because one of my teams is featured around Dialga, and its win losses are insane too. So I don't know why it's not ranked in the top 20. I think it's just because it has some it has some bad matchups, but that half steal really helps you against all these other dragons, right? So I think Dialga should be higher ranked. Florges, I'm going to talk about. Actually, I don't have an image of it, but Florges I'm going to talk about on one of my team because I think it is, again, go watch my video, one of the top non-legendary Pokemon to use. Super great all around except for steals and I guess fire, but there's not a ton of that. Giratina Origin. This one was, again, an OG. Just as long as you keep it away from, dragons, you're going to just get outpaced because you don't have a dragon move with it. And then even fairies are not bad because the Shadow Claw, Shadow Ball is usually just, you can chip a ton. Your main problem is dark. You have nothing to throw at dark. So Galio, again, what a fire with an iron head, right? So I think it's half steel, half fire. So it's like one of just your hardest answers to fairies, essentially. Fire spin and then iron head for the fairies. Gyarados, I have on one of my teams. I think it is I think, again, one of the top 5. You don't need Shadow. It helps. You don't need it, but it's one of the sort of best. And I always say, I sound like a broken record, whenever you can use Dragon Breath but not take super effective from Dragon Breath, you're in a pretty good situation, especially in the Master League. And then Palkia. I think Palkia is good, but I think it's just limited compared to the other dragons just because your really only dragon move is the Draco, which is a nuke, as opposed to all these other ones that have like a Dragon Claw or Breaking Swipe or some faster move to get to. And then Aqua Tail is going to be resisted by all the other dragons, right? So that's where it's limited. So let's go on some teams. I'm going to start with this one, but this isn't the one I would run. Dragonite Metagross so the two non-legend. I use this one is like an ABB style team. We get weak to water, weak to fighter, like a lot of weaknesses. And it's an issue now because of Xerneas that can now have close combat and deal with Dragonite, right? So I wouldn't run this. I still think Metagross Dragonite is one of the best non-legendary cores you can run in this. And one of the teams that I was just playing around with that isn't in here is your third is Florges. So Dragonite, Metagross, Florges. Again, the pure steel, again, there's not a ton of pure steel. So like Metagross would be your worst case scenario if you have to like mirror match that, and then Dragonite would have to throw like superpower, stuff like that. And Florges doesn't have anything to throw at all. But just Florges is generally so safe in this meta outside of steals, and it just covers the majority of the legendary metas as well. So I think that is a good one. If you do want to run, this is a modified Dragonite double steel with Gyarados double steel, extra Metagross. I still think it works. I use Gyarados just because there were more fairies now, right? When Dragonite double steel first came out, way back in the day, you didn't have to worry about Zacian, you didn't have to worry about Xerneas, you didn't have to worry about Florges. You just have to worry about like Togekiss is essentially the only one that you needed to worry about back in the day. There's obviously a lot more now and a lot more with coverage, so it makes it a little trickier. So that's why I would run Gyarados instead. Again, still not a great matchup. So the option is you could run Waterfall Gyarados to make it a little better on that matchup, but the only problem with that is you're now going to be in trickier situations against like Mirror Match Gyarados, where your backline is pretty weak to Gyarados, and then like Kyogre, same thing. Your backline is really weak to Kyogre, so that's why Dragon Breath, that's why Dragonite existed, right? Because draw out a Kyogre with like Excadrill, you can still get a couple draw runs off, come in punish with Dragonite, they don't really have anything to throw. Metagross can run free. That was how it worked back in the day. I think it's a little trickier to run now. So if you're going to run something like that, just keep that in mind when you're team building. And now we're playing with teams. I started with Mewtwo. And again, Mewtwo is one of those Pokemon. Why is it ranked so high if it looks like that, right? Because that's not a lot of wins here. And it's because just the spamminess of it and the hard hitting of it. You're pretty much like Groudon, Dragonite, Rayquaza, Zekrom, your side strikes in all those matchups are going to do well over 50%. So if you have like a shield advantage and or like a 1 or 2 side strike Psycho Cut advantage, you're going to get to a third side strike and flip a lot of those matchups. So that's why it's ranked so high, but not having a lot of like wins on paper. So to cover some of those losses, yeah, I just tag teamed it with 2 other super strong Pokemon. Kyurem, again, when your main problems here is going to be sort of Dragon, so having a Dragon that also has Ice is nice coverage, and then Zacian has like a super strong safe swap. If you see a Dark or Ghost on the lead, Zacian with the safe swap can flip matchups, grab shields, right? So if you can grab shields with Zacian, Mewtwo, and Kyurem probably will have a pretty good time shield advantage there. So that's how I would build around Mewtwo. My 4th team that I was looking at is built around Groudon, because again, Groudon Precipice Blades, super dominant now, and as you can see, like big wins there. 2 biggest losses, Flyers. Dragonite and Rayquaza, both flying types. Lugia down there at 3rd, at the 4th loss is a flying type. Palkia is a water, so they're going to be able to hit super effective there. Yveltal's a flyer, right? So they're going to win everything except for Flyers. So cover your flyer weakness. And the main way to cover your flyer weakness, because it's Dragonite, Rayquaza, which is also dragons, and same with Yveltal's a dark, cover it with Xerneas, right? Xerneas has the close combat, so nice safe swap. Like look how broken Xerneas is right now. Look at those win losses down the board. Being able to close combat and Moonblast is such a dominant situation to be in. And then if you need a safe swap, Lugia. So Lugia did lose, like Skytack got nerfed, so it's not, Lugia's probably not as strong, but every time I've used, again, I only have a couple hundo legendaries that are actually built up. Lugia is one of them. Every time I use Lugia, I'm almost never throwing Skytack. I'm like 90% of the time I'm throwing Aeroblast anyways. So will it hurt? Yes, because having that move now take longer to get to does hurt. But again, majority of the time you're not even using it, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. But you probably will see a little bit of, you know, sometimes you won't get to that Skytack that you used to be able to get to before. And Dialga, again, Dialga's not, this is what I'm talking about. Dialga's not on the top 20 list, but look at that, like look at that. It's so bulky. Being a dragon in this meta that also have steel to resist, to neutralize the dragon while you still hit super effective against all these other dragons. Draco Meteor Nuke, Iron Head as coverage for fairies. It's just so dominant. So I don't care that it's not on the top 20. Again, I don't play Master League Open a ton right now, but I know it's everywhere. And whenever I'm playing, I build for it too, because it is just super strong. Again, your main weakness will be Groudon as the ground and Xerneas as, again, you're still just going to get outpaced by Puck or Xerneas with close combat at that. So cover it with Kyogre. So nice coverage down the board there. And then the 3rd, Ray seems like okay. Again, the thing with Dialga is, so I was going to say, I would run this as Kyogre lead, Dialga, safe swap, Rayquaza in the back. Use that Dialga to pull out a Steel or pull out a Fairy, because you still do okay there. And then Kyogre to deal with that, and then Rayquaza free in the back. So that's how I'd run this team. But that is it. Those are the team ideas. Again, you can get away with non-legendary Pokemon. I've done it a few times, and I'm probably going to do a couple battles in the Master League just with non-legendaries again, because I think the Psychic Cup is really dumb, and people are going to get bored of it very quickly. So I'm sure towards the end of the week I will do some non-legendaries. But yeah, good luck. If you have any videos you want to submit, will definitely showcase, because I'm going to do a few Psychic Cups, and then mostly Psychic Cups at the beginning, a couple of Master League at the ending, and then videos this week are going to be sort of more random videos that people want that are not directly related to battling, like team building, Shadow versus non-Shadow, XL versus non-XL Pokemon, stuff like that. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next one.